Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Fit Chicks Chat. My name's Laura Jackson.
And I'm Amanda Quinn.
And on today's episode, even though we are a couple weeks into January,
Happy New
this is
Year.
our this is our 2025 goals podcast. So I actually like talking about this a little bit later on. I feel like there's so much pressure that first week of January where everyone's having these conversations about goals. I don't know about you, but like my YouTube feed was blowing up. There's all this, my emails, everyone's talking about goals, goals, goals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm still in the brain of like taking down my Christmas tree, figuring out getting things set up for school that's happening next week. I'm like, so I find for me, last week we did our podcast on reflection. I like to do my goal setting like kind of the second week, like start to
Mhm.
really solidify like what it is that I'm doing and what my plans are. So I've been kind of sitting down and you know looking at certain areas of my life and like what it is that I want to be working on. But I just that first week, like when everyone's like Jan 1, I'm like, I feel like it's just there's too much that week. So I find like the success happens when you have a little bit of space afterwards. So like the second week in January is the perfect time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that there's so much pressure. I always have an idea of like, okay, like what are like a couple of the bigger things that I want to achieve, but I haven't figured
Yep.
out how. I haven't sat down to think about like, okay, but that sounds nice. However, what is the actual plan to get there? Because you can't just have like a big goal without like the lead up to the actual reaching the goal. So I haven't done any of that work yet.
But I feel like that is, where it starts though, right? Is like you have to
Hmm.
first just decide what you want. And we've talked about that a lot on this podcast. And a lot of people do goal setting in different ways, right? Like some people will do like they'll pick just one goal that they're going after, and it might be like a huge impossible goal, like a big massive goal. Some people will pick, maybe 1 to 5 goals that are in different areas of their lives. So it might be like I'm picking a personal goal and a professional goal. I'm picking a personal goal, a professional goal, a health goal. I'm maybe picking all three, but I'm also picking like a lifestyle goal, like a travel goal, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So you can do it in a ton of different ways. But I find that for me, first you have to do the reflection. So if you didn't listen to our last podcast, which we did last week, which was all around our reflection process, and it's kind of a long one, but we kind of went through the things that we reflected on. And I just think it's so important to start there by like looking at what has kind of happened over the last year, taking out like the good stuff from that, leaving behind the things that you don't want to do again or you're looking to let go of, and then kind of sit down and do this process. So, Amanda, like, have you started to think about? I mean, obviously, we have some big goals, but like
Yeah.
for you, which way do you usually do it? Do you like to pick one goal? Do you like to pick 5 goals? Like, what is your kind of goal?
I usually have a bunch of different goals. I usually have one that's like personal, like health related. I usually have one that's like financial related. I have one that's work related. I have one that is like travel kind of family, like what I was saying in the reflections thing, where it's like, the year before I was like, okay, every month we're gonna do one adventure that I've never done before. Like I usually try to plan something like that. So it's kind of like siloed into different categories, and
Yeah.
I make those commitments, and then I write them out and I stick them on my whiteboard over here, and I'm like, okay, I know what the big goals are, and then I figure out, well, how do I make each of those things work? And then it's also really important that I have the visual because then I use it as my tool to be like, am I being mindful of the fact that these are my goals? If I'm,
Yeah.
if I have a financial goal and then I'm like, I'm gonna go buy, I don't know, a jet ski. I don't want a jet ski, but if that was,
No
I
one
don't
can
even
jet
know
ski.
why that came to my brain. A jet ski. But if like, I'd be like, it's something that I do not want, I don't necessarily need, or I know I don't need, you know what I mean? Like it would be something like that where I'd be like, if that was the goal, like, does that align? So I use it as like my visual cue reminder of like the big goals. I don't have like the action plans all written out on my whiteboard. I just have like the big goals so that it's like visually I can see it. But that's how I break them down is like I usually have one big goal for each siloed sort of thing.
Yeah, and I was actually saw this I think it was a YouTube short, and I cannot remember the guy's name, but it's from a long time. It's from the 70s, maybe the 80s. This clip is from. And he was talking about his goal setting process is like you write down 10 things that you want within the next year.
Yeah.
And then you look at the one and look at which one would have the most positive impact on your life. And usually one of them will jump out of you, like at you. And then that is the one you kind of focus on. So like the only thing is I do as well have multiple goals, but I find that depending on the type of person you are and if you're used to wearing like different hats, that can be too much. So like a lot of times it's kind of, and we're going to give you guys like a little process to go through, but sometimes the best thing to do is like do something like that, have multiple goals, but then look at like which one jumps out at you as like this is the one that takes precedent over those other ones, because there's always going to be one that's going to stand out to you more. So maybe like this is the
Hmm.
year that you really want to focus on your weight loss goals, or you really want to focus on growing your business, or you really want to focus on making $1 million or whatever it is. But like you can still have all of them, but there usually will be one that will kind of pop out more,
Well, it's
because like you
kind of like, I mean,
can't be given to all the
it's,
buckets, right?
yeah. Well, I was gonna say it's kind of like how even when you look at like if you're running a business, if you're a coach and you're running a business and you look at like all of the different projects you're working on, you usually have one that's like, okay, this is the needle mover. Like, and that's the thing that you want to focus on. We always talk about
Yeah.
this in our business where it's like, yeah, I could totally just sit and do like some, data entry stuff or things like that, but that's not going to move the needle necessarily. The thing that's going to move the needle is me like teaching a workshop or doing, you know what I mean? So it's like focusing on like the big needle movers first, and then everything else comes in like maybe like the downtime or the aftermath or things like that. But like you always have to kind of like choose the bigger things that are going to actually move the needle ahead of time first. So yeah, I agree with
Totally.
that.
So this is an exercise that I actually did in a workshop for other coaches, for other female entrepreneurs. And I thought it was really cool. So I just wanted to share it quickly because for people who are like, I don't know what my goal is. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I've never done goal setting before, or maybe you do goal setting with your clients and you're like, the way I've been doing it has been kind of like blah. So
Sorry.
there's this way of doing it. It's called the power of three. So it's really easy. And you again can break it down like personal, professional, maybe it's community based, or maybe it's personal, professional, like lifestyle, whatever it is. But basically, you're going to think about three things that you really want to create over this next year. So I actually
Hmm.
did this exercise, but I only did it. And then when I taught it through not like the personal professional. I talked about three things that you want to create in your business because they're entrepreneurs and we were just talking about business growth, right? So when you look at it through the lens of like three things you want to create, again, some things might pop up to you very easily. So for me, it's like a revenue goal. So like next year, I want our business to generate $3 million. Like that's the revenue goal. Then
Yes.
for me, there was also a how much I want to be working. Because that also
Mhm.
for me is part of one of my goals of leadership. Like I want to start to outsource and to build up a team. So like I'm not doing everything like that I have in my role right now. So
Mhm.
that one for me was having, 3 days of really focused work. And then also one was around monthly reoccurring revenue. So having that foundation, that system, that we're not in this launch mode all the time. So those are three things that I really want. I just looked at it through the lens of from business, but I'm going to actually do this exercise again just through my personal life as well. Like what it like, and one of them is I want to do more, which I actually broke it down to. I want every single month to do something that feeds my soul, not my family's soul, not anybody else's, but like my soul that I've never done before. So my thing I did this month is I just signed up for an introduction to reformer Pilates 5 week program. I didn't even tell you that yet. So I
Oh,
start on
nice.
next Saturday. So I'm really excited
You
for that
wanted
because
to start that before, so I'm glad that
I've
you
wanted
did
to do it
it
for
because I
so
know you
long and I
talked about it
never
for a
did
long
it.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kept putting it off. So I'm like, that's one of my personal goals, right? So like doing it through
Mhm.
both of, and then next month I'm going to have another goal, and it might be walking a trail that I've never walked before, like hiking a trail I've never hiked before, but like things that I
Yeah.
love to do that again don't require they could be big, they could be small, but for me, like just three things that you really want. So I don't know, like, do you have any that you want to share? I know that usually our goals for our business are the same.
Business is samesies. Yeah. There's no there's no changing that other than the fact that I want to become a better leader as well specifically with our like our entire team, but specifically I want to be more organized for so that I can deliver better leadership. So not even be more organized, but like actually deliver like very clear like outlines of everything that I want the person, RVA specifically to do every single week. So it's like a very clear layout. So that's actually, it's just like a very important goal for our business that I want to do. So that there's no, it's just like runs like a machine then. So then it leverages like what we talked about before, and it gives us more space to be able to do the things that we should be doing, and less about those, and things that we love doing, right? And
So
then
like this is
the,
where, oh, sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this is the thing too, right? Like, even as you're saying, like the how, right? It's like getting into the how. Because a lot of times when people start to set these goals that you really want, like we just pick these numbers, right? Like we don't know how we're gonna get to them yet,
Hmm.
but we are that's when you start to really break it down, right? Like getting into the details of
Totally.
how you're gonna actually get there, what you need to do. And that's like kind of the second part of goal planning is when you start to get into like the okay, now let me brainstorm all the ways that I'm gonna hit that financial goal this year, or I'm going to hit that amount of clients, or I'm going to hit
Yeah,
that monthly reoccurring revenue, right? But so many times we're scared to even set the goal because we're thinking from that place before we set the bigger goal. So it's like
true.
quantifying like what is a great leader, right? It's like
Hmm.
that's why for me I kind of put it as like I'm working focused work 3 days a week. Like I don't have to be working 5 days a week or 6 days a week because I have other people who are working at the same level and capacity, right? Like
Yeah,
which then again I'll figure out what that actually looks like. But it's just
yeah,
at first like, and again like I said earlier, like your goal doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It could be that you want to launch your business with 10 clients, right? You want
right.
to get 5 clients. You want to go from this being a passion to actually being a profitable business.
Hmm.
Um, so there's
Well, so
the three
yeah,
things
so
you want.
business wise, the same. Personal, I've thought a lot about this. My personal is that I want to get back into my yoga practice. So I bought a 10 class pass again. So
Yes.
I was like, same thing as you. I'm like, I bought a 10 class pass because I'm like, I've had this like foot injury for a long time, but it's really healed because I I listened to my body for once in my life, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do any more jumping. I'm not going to do any more running. I'm going to let my foot heal. And now that it's actually feeling good, I haven't tried, I still wear my orthotics. I do all these things to make sure that I'm supporting it, but I'm like, I haven't tried yoga in a long time, and I love my yoga practice, but I haven't done it in a long time because I wasn't allowed to, based on my doctor's recommendations, I wasn't supposed to be barefoot at all. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, I bought a 10 class pass as like my introduction back into it because I'm like, okay, I want to do it. And then that way there it's like it's a commitment to it, but it's not a massive commitment so that if it hurts me, then I will stop because I don't want to be like limping around again and not being able to walk again and not being able to do things because that was awful for like a year and a half where I just felt like I couldn't even put my foot flat on the ground. Um, so that's like a personal thing for me is to get really back into my yoga practice. And then also, um, just to get really committed again to my personal finances and to get really committed to, my actual like workout routines again. Because I feel like I went through like these waves where I'd be like really committed and then I wasn't really training as much and stuff. And I don't even know why. And then it's like, I don't know if anyone can relate to this that's listening, but it's like sometimes then when you stop a routine, it's like getting back into the routine can feel challenging, but I love working out. So it's like, I don't know. It was almost like a time capacity thing that I was allowing myself to believe that I didn't have the time to do it. And so now I'm
Well,
like, no, no, I'm going to create the space
it's
and the
even for me, like I
commitment.
had my surgery in October and I couldn't work out for a month. So when I got clearance after a month, then so that was in November. I haven't lifted heavy weights since then. I've been doing weights at home, but it's like again, I like because the holidays and all this stuff. So I have been working out again. I've been consistent with my workouts, but I haven't been challenging myself in the way that I like to challenge myself. And also, like
Hmm.
I would like to lift heavy weights 3 days a week. So it's just been interesting because same thing. I'm like, I could, so, but I keep being like, oh, I'm gonna do that next week, and then I end up doing, I've been doing interval training, running, a lot of walking, and then I've been doing weights at home, but I don't have the amount of heavy weights that I need. Like the heaviest weight I have is 20 pounds. So,
Yeah.
but I'm like January, that's why I'm like, okay, I've already signed up for, so I start this introduction to reformer Pilates because I really want to try it for really deep core strength. And also it's something
Yeah.
new and it's only 5 weeks. So I'm like, if I don't like it, I'm like, but it's been on my bucket list for a while.
I
So,
think you'll really like it.
yeah,
I
I
think
hope
you'll
so.
like it. I think it looks really cool. Yeah.
But for anyone who's listening, just go through this practice of thinking of three things that you really want. And then the next question is you can either pick one of them or you could do it for each of them. But think of, even if you just think of one, okay? So I'm going to use for us, for me, sorry, the idea of working 3 days a week. Okay. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying three, like I only want to work 3 days a week, like 3 days of focused work. That's when I'm like, you know what I mean? The massive production. The other day, if I work outside of that, it's like, but ideally that I could do it in 3 days a week if I was focused. But in order for me to do that, the next question is, what are the three skills you would need to develop to create that goal for yourself? So it is very important. Like I know we kind of talked about like when you were saying like getting back into your yoga practice, like it is really important with goals to try to quantify it, right? Like you think of SMART goals, it has to be measurable. So what does getting back into your yoga practice look like? Going 4 times a month? You know what I mean? Going 2 times a week? Like what is that in a number? Because again, you have to think about what you're going to have to do to make that happen. So
Hmm.
maybe, for example, for me, one of the skills that I have to work on is obviously delegation. So I
Yeah.
have to develop a better skill of delegation to be able to work 3 days a week because I can't be doing all that work, or I'm going to be back where I'm working 5, sometimes 6 days a week. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so delegation would be one. One would be around organization. So having more systems in place that if I'm not there, somebody easily can have the answer. And we've been building up those systems over the last couple of years, but you know, there's still some areas that I'm like, oh, we really could use some more systems in this place. So like delegation,
Hmm.
organization, and then also for me is self-belief. Like I'm still working on my belief. I have to build that skill set of believing that I am an amazing leader, like up leveling my thoughts, up leveling my capacity to hold responsibility. Like that is all in that, you know, self belief kind of skill. So think about whatever your goal is. Like, what are three skills that you're going to have to develop? You might already have them, but you might just need to up level them, right?
Hmm. No,
So,
definitely. Mine is definitely like for like my yoga practice, it'd be like my skill around like time management. That's a huge one because going to a yoga class is like it's an hour practice, and then on top of that, it's like the
getting
travel
there,
and
getting
everything. So
home.
it's about a 2 hour window that I'm going to be utilizing, right? So it's definitely a time management thing. And I think I'm okay with my time, but I know that I could do better, right? So that's definitely one. One would be the physical aspect of like the actual skill of getting back into that kind of movement and practice again, which is um I like doing like power yoga and Ashtanga style yoga, so it is very like physically demanding, um, which I'm totally open to, but it's just getting back into that. And then I don't know what the other skill would be. It'd probably be more just around like something to do with like my household, like managing, like figuring out like managing my household and my workload and all those kinds of things. So similar to time management, but more about like
And
actual
maybe like
like probably
around
like
boundaries.
delegation. Yeah.
Yeah, like boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really interesting because like again as you start to think because a lot of people start to go right to like the things that I need to do, like okay, so in order for me to work 3 days a week I need to, you know, offload this, I need to hire two people, I need to do, and that those are just, but it's like who is it that you need to become? Like what are the skills that you're missing? Which is why like at Fitness Academy we talk so much about skill development because your skills make you more valuable to the market, right? The skills
Hmm.
that you hone in also benefit you in every other area of your life. So when you're learning something and you're investing time in like learning a skill about nutrition, you're not just okay, I'm just learning about nutrition. You're actually like investing in your health. You're investing in a skill set that you can support other people with, that you can make money with. Like there's so many things, right? So when you start to think about these skills that you need to develop, it just changes not only like your belief in the possibility of hitting this goal, but the person who you are becoming to be able to hit this goal, which is like,
Yeah.
that's what you have to build, right? So I find that one really interesting. When I did the business workshop, it was just so fascinating, like in the aha moments that people were having, because they're like, oh my gosh, like I have to develop, like one girl's like, I'm such a people pleaser. Like, I don't know what that skill is, but I have to not be a people pleaser. Like, my skill is to
Yeah.
not be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really interesting. So the next question is, what are 3 habits that you need to implement in order to create that goal? So
Mhm.
again, the skills that you need to develop, you could even think of it like, what habits do I need to put in place to be able to create that skill? Right? So
Yeah.
again, for example, the like for me with the 3 days, like one of the habits that I have to do is start off, like when I'm doing my planning meeting for the week, I have to start to like offloading stuff. So like it has to
Mhm.
be like a habit of, I can't just think about this as a big macro thing. I have to get into the habit of weekly delegation. Like I have to have a weekly um I don't know if it's like a delegation plan or like something, because again, it's like, oh, I got to hire someone or I'm going to offload this. And then it just becomes this kind of meta conversation instead of being like, this is what I'm doing every single week. So I need to add that into like my planning every single week. I also have to get back in the habit of doing my thought work. Like I have not, and that has been so impactful on my life, positively and negatively when I haven't done it. Like doing my thought downloads, doing my models, looking at my thinking, looking at what's not serving me, right? Like that's one of them. And then the other
Yeah.
thing that I have to stop doing, because it could be like something you have to start doing or stop doing. Um, the other one for me is that I just have to stop. Like, well, I'm trying to think of it as like a habit actually. So one is more like or like weekly organization of delegation. Definitely the habit of thought work that I have to get back in. I used to do it weekly as well. So I would do it like usually on Sundays, and I would kind of do it for what had happened the week, what's going on, what I want to create, or if we have like a launch coming up or something that's really stressful. Um, and the other one too, I have to get back in the habit of getting my workouts in. This is kind of related, but not related. Um, like earlier in the morning. I find lately I've been working out later at night again, where I'm not like, I don't feel as good, which again, that leads into me not being as good of a leader and being able to show up the way I want to show up. So,
Mhm.
like, those would be my habits.
For sure. I think for me, it would be going to bed earlier because I want to do my yoga practice early in the morning because
Yes.
I don't want if it's a 2 hour window, it's got to be early. Um, and I do like doing it first thing in the morning. So it would be definitely going to bed earlier because I have a terrible habit of like 10, 11 at night being like, this is now my downtime, and then utilizing that time to like watch trash TV or things like that, like just
Yeah.
random things, and then I stay up for so late. So definitely going to bed earlier, prepping all my stuff in advance, like have like my gear ready to go, that kind of thing. Because I know it helps. It's like it's already ready. And this one might sound kind of silly, but also having like my car, like have gas in the car, that kind of thing. Because I don't want it to be like
Yeah.
a deter. I don't want the deterrence. Like because as soon as you run into an obstacle, it's so easy to then just be like, never mind, right? I actually have gotten into this habit of like putting gas in the car before any kind of like big event and stuff, and it makes things so much easier. Like even if we're just like we're traveling, we're going to I don't know, our family's house for dinner. I'm like the day before, if I know that we are, I go and get gas. Like if I'm out doing grocery shopping, I get gas then because I'm like, if we have to do it on the way there, it causes such a like it's just like it's like ruffles the plan. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
can't think of the right word, but it causes this like thing. So it's the same thing. I don't want to be like, oh no, I need gas and I'm rushing to yoga and then I don't have time and then it's like, oh, I'm not gonna go, right? So
Well, it's the
those
whole
are
thing
those are
of,
like very simple, like very like tactical things, but those would be 3 very tactical things that I could do to make sure that I actually reach that goal.
but it's like, these are the things like, I'm such a huge believer in habits, right? Because
Mhm.
like, our habits are either serving our goals or moving us away from our goals. And it's like,
Mhm.
there's so many things that we can do in advance for our future self that makes our lives easier. Like, how hard is it to eat healthy or to, focus on your weight loss goal or your health goal when you have nothing prepared in your fridge and you're starving? You know what I mean? Like, you're
Oh
going to
my gosh,
grab
it's
whatever's
so
there.
hard. Yeah.
So it's like, you've got to set up your space for success. You've got to think about like, okay, if these are the skills I need to develop, then what are the habits that I need to have to be able to do that to get to this goal? And this is kind of
Hmm.
all in like the personal reflection before you get to like, okay, now I'm going to get into the actual actions I have to take. So like sit with those three things for a minute and then think about what are the actions I have to take now to put those habits into place.
Hmm.
And like that kind of becomes your roadmap, right? Like, so if I'm gonna, if all the actions I need to do to work 3 days a week are I need to hire two people, okay, so then I need to, develop the skill of delegation. And I'm also going to do that by creating this weekly plan when I hire them and like going through, okay, I need to, you know, I need to create the systems. Okay, who do I need to create those systems? And then you can get into all of the details from there, but you got to start with kind of these three big things. Because if not, then you get caught in the details without being able to see like the direction that you're going towards. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
well, I don't really want to do this, but that's helping me build the habit or building the skill of delegation. So this is what I'm going to do. So looking at those three things, which is like the power of three, and then you can write out everything you think you need to be able to hit that goal. And then you can add that to, okay, this is the timeline I'm going to do this by. So I just find that it's a easier way. And again, you don't have to have all three. You could just pick one. Like I like to pick one big goal and then the three things for each. And it just is a really good way of kind of getting honest with yourself too, because so many people will say, I want this thing, but they're not willing to develop the skills to do it. And they're not willing to develop the habits to do it. And if you don't develop
Yeah.
the skills and you don't develop consistency in the habits, you're never going to get there. Right. It's like,
Yes.
I want to have a business with 100 paying clients, but I want to drink on the weekends and I want to sleep in every day. And I don't, you know what I mean? Like you, unfortunately, especially at the beginning, you can't have both. So what are the
Hmm.
things that you have to start or stop doing to be able to get to your goals? So that's kind of the way that, this year we're kind of picking goals and starting to look at it. But the other thing that I just want to say too that I did last year and I think is really powerful is picking the word. And it could be one word. I picked three word. Apparently I am into threes. You can pick one word or I pick three, but that you want the next year to kind of embody or feel like,
Hmm.
right? So last year my words were fun, focus, and leverage. And in my reflection conversation, I talked about how I kind of felt like the only one I was really like was focus. Like I felt like all my focus was on work, but the fun factor was kind of lacking. And the leverage was like, I feel like I have gotten better at it, but like I'm definitely still have a lot of room to move in that area. So I actually am kind of keeping the same three. I'm not changing them this year. Um, because I feel like I like those three. Leverage is going to help me to get to my goals, all three of my goals, right? Being able to build a better team, be a better leader. Um, so I do want to leverage, even like with whatever we're creating. Focus, I still want to be focused, but I really want to have more fun. So I'm putting more emphasis on the fun while I'm focused, like fun focus. So those are
Mine,
my words.
I had two words that mine was commitment and order. And
Mm,
those sound really boring, but they might be a little bit boring, but I'm okay with that. The commitment side is just like really committed to every single goal, but also committed to every day showing up and being exactly who I say I'm going to be. And the order aspect is just I even sent you a text message the other day and I said, like I'm committed to getting my life in order and not that my life is like chaotic or anything like that, but I feel like every single thing, and I talked about this in the reflection one, like everything in your life, it's like when I feel like my drawers are messy or something like that,
yeah,
it creates like this thing in your brain that like overwhelms me. I get really overwhelmed about things like that because then I'm thinking about it consistently being like,
yeah,
I need to spend time to do that. I need to find time to do that. I need to find time. And so it puts me in this weird loop state. So I'm like, I've committed to getting things in order, whether it be like my yoga practice, whether it be my drawers in my house, whether it be, you know what I mean? Like having our car cleaned, whatever. I don't know what it is. But it's just like random things, but all of those things because all of the small things matter. So it's like about having order and commitment and also order when it comes to our business of like I said, having SOPs and being really diligent about having like set plans in place for every single person so that I'm able to leverage them and I'm able to utilize those tools. Um, that we have like our systems as tools and then our people as resources. So, and support. So those are like my two big words, and that's just like 100%. And then I always have fun though. Fun is like a
But it's also
necessary, but I mean, but it's like a focused fun. I know what you're talking about, where it's like I'm actually like I'm gonna plan to do things that are fun. So
because this
yeah,
is the thing that, I think when you're younger, you don't realize is that the more order that and, plans that you have, the more fun you actually have because it takes so much
yeah,
off of your brain and it helps you get into momentum, right?
yeah,
It's like most people want a business because they want freedom, but the only way to get to freedom is by having structure. And it's like those two
yeah.
words just don't make sense together for people, right? Or for me, it didn't at least. It was like, no, I want to be able to work when I want to work. Which I did. And I still do sometimes. Like I used to work, before I had my son, I'd be working like late at night and I'd be working on weekends. And I sometimes would do like a 12-hour like marathon at the coffee shop. And I loved it. And then it was like, but then you start to feel like, again, as you have more responsibilities or as you start to feel more tired, or you're like, wait a second, I'm kind of all over the place. You're like, as you start to implement more structure, you see that you're getting more momentum
Mhm.
and you have less like open loops, which again is exhausting to the brain. The more decisions we have to make constantly, like the more mentally exhausted we get, right? So it's just so much easier to make the decisions in advance, stick to the plan. Like then you can actually create more freedom because you're like, oh, this is what I've got going on, this is how I'm going to get there, instead of like, I just don't want structure, I'm like a free spirit, which
I still
you know
remember when someone who's part of like our mastermind, they said to us, it was James, and he said that, everyone thinks that systems is like putting you in a box and like you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't get out of this. But he's like, they're actually the key to your freedom. So having systems,
yeah.
having processes, having habits that support the end goal that you want, that's actually your key to the freedom. So and when I still remember when he said this, it was we were in Connecticut and we were having this conversation. He said it, and I was like, oh, I've always thought of it the opposite. And I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people think that like having these things and having structure and having all these things is the bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. It's an amazing thing. So that's why I'm saying commitment and order. Order and commitment. Either way, those are my words. That's my focus for this year. And our business, of course, has massive goals. And so I can't reach those goals without order and commitment. So,
Well, and this is where kind of the last thing I want to say is like those first two things, if you're listening to this, it's like, again, you're having that kind of bigger vision and the habits and the skills, like, again, like kind of this bigger, high level view of your year ahead. And then, setting the word. So it's kind of like the vibe you want for the year. Like, what do you want to feel while you're creating those things? But then the last piece, which is like I was saying, the most important piece is like, what is the one thing you're going to do every day to get to that goal? And this is a
yeah.
conversation Matt and I were having offline. And it truly is like the way to get out of overwhelm. Because when you set these big goals, then your brain starts panicking and is like, how the heck are we going to actually hit those goals? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know what to do, blah, 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 blah. Or if you did what I was saying, like brainstorming out all the things you need to do to hit it, you're looking at this huge to do list and you're like, I can't do all of these. So it's like, what is one of those things you could do every day, or three of
Move
those
the
things you could
needle.
do every week that are going to move you towards that? So, like, for me, one of my personal too is like, same as you. It's like, it's not even getting my house organized. I don't want to say it like that. It's just that I moved into this house when my son was 5 months old. And I feel like there's so many things I want to do that I'm constantly thinking about. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I'm not doing it. So it just stays in my brain as this like open loop. Because again, he's still, he's 3.5. He's still home part time. Like, so I've literally just started to break it down to like, these are all the things that I want to do in my house. And then what is one thing I can do that will move me towards that goal, that's like a bite-sized thing. So
Yeah.
like it could be as small as like I organized a closet, or I am, I'm like, because I still have a ton of baby stuff. So I look at all the baby stuff, I feel like I'm so overwhelmed. I'm like, I'm just getting rid of baby clothes. Like I'm not looking at the toys. I'm just doing the baby clothes because my basement is literally a dumping ground of baby stuff. So it's just like, those
Yeah.
are the things, like if you can literally just take that bigger vision look at that list and then start to take that one action, because you will not get your goals without action. We've said this a gazillion times, but for some reason, and
Mm-hmm.
even for me, I still want to think like, if I look at the things I have not created yet, I'm like, have I actually taken the actions I need to do to create that? And most of the times the answer is no. So it's
True.
like you gotta do things. Like you can't create a result if you're not doing something.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, if your goal is to work 3 days a week to make millions of dollars, like what are the actions? Are you going to run a webinar? Are you going to run a free workshop? Are you going to, you know, open your YouTube channel and start promoting on that? Like, what are those actual things you're going to do? And the small pieces of that, like maybe I'm just writing a YouTube script today. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like doing the full YouTube video, that's overwhelming, but like I'm going to figure out my topics and I'm going to write the script. It's moving you towards it. It's getting you on momentum, but you've got to start to get in these consistent little habits. And that's kind of the what I this is the way I'm approaching it. And I find it really like helpful, because instead of being like, I have to do this or I'm doing this week, I just want to do one thing a day. It could
Yeah.
take 5 minutes some days, it could take an hour some days, whatever it is, but I'm doing one thing a day that's moving me towards one specific goal.
It's such a good plan.
I'm going to see where I am at the end of 30 days. I guarantee it's going to be crazy.
All right,
Okay, everybody.
everyone.
So that was our goal setting for 2025. You got to hear a couple of our goals. So hopefully you feel inspired to set some of your own. And again, you could do it whether it be personal, professional, lifestyle, all the things, but kind of follow that power of three. I think it's really key to understanding not only just what you want, but like who you need to become to get it and what are the things you need to do, and pick your words for the year. Like sometimes people, you want this year to feel really focused, or like, depending on what you're working on, or you want it to feel really light and fun, like, or you might want it to feel all those things, but choose how you want this year to feel, because when you go after those goals, you're going to have to generate that feeling. Sometimes it's not going to just happen. Like you got to make it fun to be doing accounting, which I'm like, but it all will make it worth it. So, of course, if one of your goals is to get certified, we have some amazing certifications coming up. We have our Holistic Nutrition Weight Loss Coach certification that is starting on February 10th. It's open for enrollment right now. And then we also have our Fitness and Nutrition Expert certification that is starting on March 24th. So, we have a ton of fun stuff coming up. So check it out, fitchexacademy.com. And we'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know, what are your goals for 2025? It's one of my favorite times of year to hear what everyone's gearing up for. So we will talk to you guys next week. Have an amazing day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.